Evil Dead Burn just came out. I'm going to be talking some spoilers, which I don't think really matter too much at this point. It's been out for a little bit now, so you've had plenty of time to see the movie. And despite that, I honestly think this is one of those movies where even if you know everything that's going to happen, you're probably still going to see it anyway. Honestly, I think if you've seen the trailer, you're going to know what's going to happen in this movie. And within the first 10 or 15 minutes, I feel like it was pretty easy to tell where this was going. Basically, it ties into Evil Dead Rise, where you have a family that gets turned into demons. You get a demon family in this, just like in Evil Dead Rise. There are some other connections to Evil Dead Rise. The intro, which is one of my favorite parts of the movie, honestly. I didn't get this right away, but the intro to Evil Dead Rise is kind of like what we see played out here on this lake. Basically, we got these guys going fishing. The lady that turns into a demon at the beginning of Evil Dead Rise, we see her fucking get resurrected and shit and turn into a deadite demon, and she kills these guys real bad. And it is probably one of the best scenes in the movie, honestly. I wish the rest of the movie kind of would have followed suit to this opening scene. It's very promising for an Evil Dead movie. It felt very similar to the 2013 Evil Dead, which I feel like they did a good job with that one. Just to be clear, the original trilogy is my favorite. I'm one of those Evil Dead fans where I'm always it's going to be like 1, 2, and 3 or 2, 1, and 3 as my top Evil Dead movies. And then from then on, I feel like 2013 is the next best entry. Honestly, they kind of go almost in order of when they came out for me. You could swap out Rise and Burn for me. I feel like maybe I liked Burn a little better than Rise. I'd have to go back and watch Rise again, but just off of a one, I've only seen each one of them one time now, and I would probably put Burn slightly higher than Evil Dead Rise. But anyway, I'm just going to go through some of the things I liked and some of the things I didn't like. I really liked the opening scene, like I said, really cool. The fishing wire kill was pretty brutal, and then him getting boiled in the water and shit. A lot of burning going on in this movie, if you can imagine that. A movie called Evil Dead Burn. Then right after that, there's a kill where the main character's husband, he's a fucking dickhead, and he's drunk and he's like always kicking his wife's ass and stuff like that. I can't remember the main character's name. Alice is always getting her ass kicked bad by her husband, and he's like, fuck you French bitch, I'm gonna go drive my car drunk. So he crashes into the demon from the lake, and then he dies in a fiery burning death in his car. And that's honestly, like, that whole opening sequence was pretty cool for me. I think the only thing I didn't like about it was they kind of go into like the three wise men shit, and it's like, hey, we don't need to fucking talk about the three wise men, okay? Just leave that shit out of it. We understand that there's an evil fucking book that brings the fucking demons back to the dead from the dead, and they possess everybody's families. That's the new thing we're going for, apparently. I wonder if that's what's going to happen in Evil Dead Wrath. I think they're already working on that one, or it's already made or some shit. I think it's coming out next year. I wonder if it's going to be like, it takes place in the 70s, but I wonder if it's going to be another family possession, maybe like a 70s family possession movie. Hopefully not. I'd like to get away from that. Maybe they could do like just a group of friends again. That would be a fun idea. So the other parts of the movie that I liked, there's a tense dinner scene where I was thinking either they're going to kill this dog right here, right now, or he's going to kill somebody sitting at the dinner table. Basically, you get this like family that's mourning the death of their son, and his, widowed wife is there at their house, or it's like their family house that they don't live in anymore, but they're like meeting up there, and it's like all decrepit and shitty looking now because they let their little son live there, and he's just like fucking doing research all the time instead of, mowing the yard or painting the house or like fixing anything. So the house looks like a fucking piece of shit, and they're basically just sitting around this table. The dad's already been possessed by a deadite, and we know that because we saw it happen at the funeral for whatever reason. I don't know. It took a little bit of the tension away from this scene, but it kind of tipped the movie into that area where it's like, we're going to kill a dog. And I feel like that's a line that some movies are willing to cross. This one definitely is, because he just goes ballistic in the middle of dinner and just starts stabbing the fuck out of the dog in front of everybody. And for some reason, I thought that was a pretty good scene. Not my favorite, but still, it lets you know that this movie may not have any limits. Like, damn, it's a French movie. What are they going to do next? Are they going to saw somebody in half or something, or do some other really brutal shit, pull somebody apart? You don't know. At this point, you're like, if they're willing to kill the dog. But then the family just kind of like takes the dog out back and buries it. Like, they don't really give a fuck. I'm sure they're sad about the dog and shit, but they don't really seem that worried that the dad just like had a fucking meltdown and stabbed the dog to death. It's like, you think they'd be like, maybe this guy needs to go fuck off or go for a walk or something. Just stab the family dog to death like a real dickhead. And along with this family, there's an old granny with dementia, and she's just kind of like, she's always like thinking that the son's girlfriend is going to be like stealing shit because she's like, I don't know, Chinese or something. I didn't really get that. I didn't think that was like a Chinese stereotype, but maybe it is. But anyway, there's a cool scene with the grandma after she gets turned into a deadite where she like is underneath the bed sheet and she stands up in the bed sheet, and it just the way it was lit and the way it was shot looked really cool. And that's something where like some of these scenes, well, I'll get to it later. The bedsheet scene is probably my second favorite scene, to be completely honest, right after the opening scene. And then after that, there's a scene where the main character, Alice, is running through the woods, like towards the climax of the movie, and it's all lit in red. Like everything's backlit in red, so the trees are silhouettes, and her running through the woods is just like a silhouette, and it's like bright red. I thought it looked really cool. It kind of reminded me of the ending scene of the 2013 movie where everything gets really red, but almost like a little bit more giallo-ish in this movie, where it's so bright red that it's completely unnatural, and I thought that was really cool. Other than that, I think the only thing that I really enjoyed about the movie was that they were willing to kind of lean into some of the more shocking moments. Like, there's a scene where a character gets a sharp pin shoved into her ear and fucking like punctures her eardrum and shit. That was pretty shocking, very brutal. I feel like I keep referencing the 2013 movie. I feel like some of the damage, the ear damage, and just overall like brutality of this movie reminded me of that one, where like, I keep saying like, where it just felt very visceral in the 2013 movie. When the lady cuts her tongue in half and the guy gets the syringes in him and busts his head in the bathroom, all that stuff. It felt on par with that at moments. The only problem is it didn't know when to say when. I feel like there was some moments where it could have had that heaviness, but then it would kind of do something silly, but I couldn't tell if it was intentional or if it was just overdoing it. The whole point of the Deadites coming to this house is that they're looking for basically a magic knife that can kill the Deadites, similar to what we've seen in some of the older movies. You know, that's like the only way to destroy them. I'm going to get lost in the woods myself if I keep thinking about the rules of this movie, because that's going to be something that's on my do not like list. My do not like list might be long and strong compared to my like list. But anyway, the Deadites, they're looking for this knife so that they can't be killed by it anymore. And there's a scene where Alice is going through her ex-brother-in-law's research papers and all of his shit to find the knife, and there's like 20 different knives to choose from, and she starts stabbing them into him after he's been turned into a Deadite to see which one actually works. Thought that was pretty cool. A pretty clever moment there. And then eventually she gets the right one, and it's kind of the one that looks less fantastic. Almost like a little Indiana Jones shout out there when he's looking for the right cup, and it's not like the grand looking cup. You know what I'm saying? That about does it for the things that I like, though. I think that kind of covers everything. There might be some things that I missed, but just going off the top of my head, I feel like that's kind of the things that stood out to me anyway, the good things. And to transition over, something that was kind of bugging me a little bit, and this might have just been the theater that I was in, but the volume was up so loud in the theater that it was almost like fucking unbearable at moments. And I couldn't tell if this was due to the volume being so loud, but the Deadites' voices sounded so fucking tarded that I couldn't understand what they were saying. Like, you know how in the old movies they have the freaky like doubled up voices with like the low octave and the high voice, and they're making that shrill demon voice or whatever. In this one, there was several moments where the Deadites were talking, and I had no fucking clue what they were saying, and it probably wasn't important. Like, it probably wouldn't have made the movie any better, I guess. But at the same time, I was just kind of like, what the fuck? the fuck's going on here? And speaking of the way the movie sounded, the score to the movie also stood out as just like really fucking awkward. I feel like there was a lot of moments where they would be doing some bullshit and they would just start doing slow-mo shots or like multiple angle shots, and the music would go on into this like weird, like almost like orchestral electronic kind of thing. It almost reminded me of like it felt like the music was trying to be really dramatic and really serious, and this like kind of, I mean, the movie looks serious. I feel like it's just because everything looks like gray and like the colors kind of washed out of most of the movie, but what is actually going on in the movie doesn't seem to match the tone of the color palette and the music. Like the music felt almost similar to what you would expect in a movie like Requiem for a Dream or something like that. Like it's supposed to be a really, really serious movie for some reason. And it's a movie about demons coming back and, you know, taking over a bunch of people. I don't know. It's a fucking demon movie. So yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of the score. And honestly, like it's kind of one of those things where like a lot of the times I don't notice the score on my first watch, and I think that's kind of a sign of a good movie or like a score that blends well with the movie. If it stands out as like being really good, then I think it's exceptional. And if it stands out as being like almost silly, kind of like in this movie, then I don't know. I kind of chalk that up as a negative. Another big thumbs down for me is going to be that this movie just kind of felt like a generic demon movie. It didn't really feel like it was even tied into the Evil Dead universe. And I think that's because what they do with the Necronomicon and kind of over explaining how the little brother's uncle has been doing all this research and stuff, and now he's figured out that there's demons and whatnot, and this kid's just kind of like, yeah, now I'm figuring it out too. It's just, I don't know. It just feels like maybe they could come up with a different way for the Necronomicon to get introduced into these stories. And not to mention the fact that it does tie into all the other Evil Dead movies, but it doesn't use the same rules, felt very, very awkward to me. And I get that the rules, they do kind of shift from movie to movie, but this one was just like, so the dad gets turned into a deadite pretty early on, and then he just kind of hangs out outside of the house, and he does like, I don't know, like spooky stuff for them to see out the window, but he doesn't really try to get into the house until the mom lets him in. And it almost feels like he's a vampire or something, like he needs permission to get into the house. Because then once he gets into the house, he starts whooping the son's ass, and he's like flying through the fucking walls like he's Superman or something. He's like slamming him through the roof, and he's fucking pile driving his ass through the floors and stuff. And it's just like, so you could have just kicked the fucking door down any time. I mean, you're a demon. And the grandma gets turned into a deadite because I think like spit gets into her eye, or like a little drop of blood gets into her eye. But if that's all it takes, then wouldn't anybody in these movies be a fucking demon because they get blood all over them? They're like chainsawing each other in half and stuff, and blood spraying all over their faces, and the deadites are like puking in their faces and shit half the time and spitting blood all over them. I mean, everybody gets blood all over them in these movies, but this grandma gets like one little tiny drip of blood on her or something, and she's a fucking deadite. I don't know. I just thought that was pretty dumb too. I know that Sam Raimi, Rob Tapper, and Bruce Campbell have been attached to all these newer Evil Dead movies as well, which is really cool. And that kind of does always spark a little hope for me that maybe they're going to come out with a good one. But then I have to remind myself that Sam Raimi did also just make Multiverse of Madness, which kind of fucking sucks. I mean, it's kind of a piece of shit movie, and it's, you know, it's a Marvel movie, but at the same time, even as far as Marvel movies go, it was pretty fucking bad. So maybe I should go in with the lowest expectations. And I did have pretty low expectations going into this, honestly, which might have helped a little bit. And that brings me to my next point. The main character is kind of fucking dumb. I thought the actor did a good job with the role that she was given, but just overall, it was hard for me to believe that this character would even be here. So basically her backstory is that her and her husband, like, they run a club together, and he's a dick to her, and she smokes cigarettes a lot, and he's like, you got to quit smoking so that you can have a baby and stuff like that. And she's like, I don't want to, I'm French, you know. they keep talking about how he like whoops her ass all the time and stuff like that, but they show the same flashback of him like burning her with like a pot in the kitchen like 5 or 6 different times, and it's like one of those slow-mo scenes where it'll show like her looking at her scar on her stomach and she's like fuck, and then it'll cut back to like Mark or whatever his name is like yelling at her in the kitchen and knocking this thing off the stove and it burns her. I can't remember now if it was like really intentional, like did he grab it and like throw it at her, or did he, they're fighting and he knocked it off and it burned her and he just didn't really give a shit. Either way, he's a fucking dickhead, and he sucks, and he's like, you get the idea that he's probably whooping her ass because they mention it like a lot throughout the movie. Even the other family members, when they like get mad at her or when they turn into deadites, they're just like, oh yeah, we're glad that Mark was beating your ass all the time, dumbass, dumb bitch, you probably deserved it and stuff like that. And she's like, no, I didn't. And so you get this whole idea that like, damn, she's been getting her ass whooped by her husband, and she's kind of, it seems like they're having a pretty rocky relationship as it is, and they might be going in different directions as far as like wanting to have kids go, which is a pretty big decision to make when you're married to somebody. So you just kind of feel like, okay, this relationship, I mean, I get that she feels guilty that he died in a car accident after they get into this big fight and stuff like that. But at the same time, the family also hates the fuck out of her, like right away, even before they get turned into deadites and stuff. You can tell right away that like they fucking hate her. They probably are, equally blaming her for their son's death. So why would she agree to go hang out with them in this house for what seems like they're going to be like spending the night together? You think she would show up to the funeral and then be like, I gotta do something else, guys, I'm sorry. But instead she like agrees to go with them and spend the night at the little brother shitty house, and basically have everyone talking shit to her the whole time and talking about how big of a fucking bitch she is and how the husband was so good and stuff like that. And it's like yeah, it's their son. I get why they would be mourning him as much as they are and stuff like that, and wanting to honor his memory and whatnot. But she was just getting like fucking body slammed by his ass a week ago, if not even sooner than that. So you think she would maybe be like, I could probably use a break from all of this, but instead she goes there. And then right away she sees all sorts of fucked up shit, and she's just kind of like, damn, this is fucking weird, dog. I'm just gonna hang out. I would have been, why wouldn't she be fucking piecing out of there like instantly, like get a fake phone call and be like, shit, that's my dad, I need to go, he needs help, he fell down, I gotta go help him, bye. And then get the first fucking bus out of that bitch, dude. The place sucks, their house sucks, the whole family sucks. Fuck them. And then I think we just made it to the CGI final boss scene. So like I said, Mark, or the husband, whatever the fuck his name is, Mike or Mark or something, he gets all burnt up in a car accident and dies a pretty rough death. He comes back as a burnt to a crisp, Slim Jim looking ass. Mark comes back looking like the guy off of Beetlejuice that's sitting next to him that died smoking cigarettes in his bed. He looks like that, but if that guy was made out of CGI. And he's just like comes like stomping back up to the house after everybody's gotten killed and they've gotten through the whole fucking family sub boss fight that she's been doing, and she's got the powerful knife, the deadite knife now, she's got the main weapon, and this is where she's like running away from him in the woods and shit like that, and he just has the shittiest voice too. Not only does he look like shit, he sounds like shit. He's just like, I'm back, and doing one of those voices, and it's like, fuck you. The other thing that just kind of makes this suck even more is they build this up throughout the entire movie, where you see him come back in the crematorium like before he gets burnt up again. They're just like he like pops out and fucking turns his dad into a deadite and stuff like that. But the whole movie, the dad's just like, oh yeah, he's coming back, Mark's on his way. And then like the mom's doing it too, I think. Maybe even before she gets turned into a deadite. The mom kind of goes evil before she even gets turned. She like lets the dad in before he turns her, and they like make out and shit, even though, so the dad like blasts his own head like 3 times just to show them like how fucked up he is, which is another scene that kind of fucking sucks, because it's just like, I don't think this is doing what you think it's doing. It does the slow motion and it's got like the fucking heavy orchestral shit going on. And he's just like shooting himself in the head. And it's like, all right, bud. It would be cooler if you had like some Static X playing right now, honestly. Like this would, I just feel like they got the tone all wrong. This needed a new metal soundtrack, to be completely honest. Not this fucking like heavy dub orchestral shit. We needed some fucking Cold, some Stain, some Seethers, some Static X, some Power Man 5000. That's what the soundtrack and what the score needed. They should have had Jonathan Davis score this movie, to be completely honest. So they're just always talking about like, oh, he's coming back. He's coming back. He's gonna get you or something like that. And she's kind of like, shit, really? And then he does, and he just looks like a crispy ass guy. And he basically chases her around the woods into this construction site, and he tries to melt her with lava or something. And she's like, no, but she beats him. She does get fucked up pretty bad. And I thought the battle that they have was pretty cool between the two of them. But just the way he looks and acts and sounds was very shitty. The last thing I got to say is the post-credit scene sucked my dick. There's 2 post-credit scenes. That means twice the suck my dick, basically. The first one is a mid-credit scene, and I actually left before the second one. I didn't realize there was going to be a second post-credit scene. Who the fuck wants to wait around that long? Just put the shit in the actual fucking movie or don't, honestly, at this point. They need to fucking do away with these post-credit scenes. It's dumb as fuck. So anyway, the first one is like the old lady, the grandma. She's like crawling across the road still, and this guy pulls over and he's like, oh, do you need help, bitch? And she's just like, and then that's it. And you just kind of see her like fucked up looking eye. And it's like kind of a played for laughs type of scene, you know? But at the same time, it's just kind of fucking dumb. It's like, okay, are we supposed to be laughing at this old lady crawling around the road? Is that funny to you? Whoever the fuck directed this movie, what's this guy's name? Fucking Sebastian Vanacek. Is that funny, motherfucker? But anyway, so I left after that one because I was like, damn, that sucks. Just does. Also, she's still a deadeye. Why is she crawling around the road like a fucking zombie would? These deadeyes can like fly in the air and shit and do all this fucking, wild shit. And she's crawling around like a fucking idiot. So I guess the next post-credit scene, which this one I'm really glad I didn't see. I actually saw it on internet later. Just on internet. It's the Jessica mom from fucking Evil Dead Rise. I hate this so much. I can't believe they did this. And this apparently was solely a studio request. This was one of those things, I guess the director said that this was out of his hands. The agreement was that he could do whatever he wanted with the movie as long as they let the studio do this last post-credits scene. And it's, I guess you see the Jessica mom's ashes, and then she fully forms back into her figure from Evil Dead Rise, and she like breaks some little kid's neck in half, and she says, "Mommy's back." And that, I swear to God, dude, I probably would have fucking thrown my beer at the screen of the movie theater if they would have sold me a beer. But they just had a bunch of little kids working there, so they couldn't even sell me a fucking beer at the movies. I was about to come over the counter on those kids, dude. Fucking give the one motherfucker a swirly in the popcorn machine. Just get his ass with the hot butter. You know what I'm saying? I want a beer. God damn it, kids! You're gonna make me watch this movie without drinking a fucking beer? Yeah, I would have shotgunned 2 beers and fucking thrown them at the screen if I would have saw this asshole of a post-credit scene. And it makes no fucking sense. I don't give a shit what the fuck you want to say about the Evil Dead movies. If she's burnt into little ashes in an urn or whatever, that's what it sounded like to me. Why would she be able to come back as like a full-bodied person? Like, I'm pretty sure in most of the other movies, if you dismember somebody or if you dismember a deadeye, they're dead. They're done for. That's it. Apparently in this movie, all it takes is a dishwasher door to get smashed onto a deadeye's head to stop them forever. But she can get cremated into fucking ashes and still come back? What in the fuck are we doing? And obviously, the next movie's taking place in the 70s, so why even do this bullshit? Because it's not like the next movie is going to follow this one and she's going to be there as the character or something. Damn it. I've lost hope for these fucking Evil Dead movies. I'll probably still go see all of them just in case there's a good one, but this one, fuck, man. This one didn't do anything for me, really. It just felt like a big fuck fest. Like a multiverse of assness, more like it. Shit. I give it 2.5 out of 5. I think as an Evil Dead movie, I'd give it 2.5 out of 5. Maybe overall, if this wasn't attached to the Evil Dead franchise, I might give it a 3 out of 5. It had some fun moments. And I know I'm kind of been pissing all over the movie or whatever, but it's mostly because of what this franchise could be and what it has been in the past. And I know that's a lot of franchises out there. They can't live up to the past and stuff like that. They can't live up to the OGs. But I feel like if you get the right people behind it and you get the studios a little bit more removed than they seem to obviously be, you could get some good Evil Dead movies still.